According to the National Electrical Code, specifically Section 250.52 FE, pre-stressed concrete piles that contain embedded rebar are indeed considered grounding electrodes. Because they qualify as grounding electrodes, they must be bonded together to form what is known as a grounding electrode system, or GES. Now let's delve into the methods for bonding these piles, particularly when they lack uplift connectors. There are several accepted methods. Firstly, we have exothermic welding, also known as a molten metal connection. This method involves creating a direct connection to the exposed steel reinforcement using a thermite reaction. Secondly, there's the mechanical clamp approach, where a copper or aluminum clamp is securely fastened to the rebar using bolts or screws. Thirdly, consider a conduit connection, wherein a metal conduit is attached to the rebar and subsequently grounded at the grounding connection point. Fourthly, is a concrete piercing bolt. A bolt equipped with a large washer is driven through the concrete and directly into the rebar to establish a connection. Now, if bonding the pre-stressed concrete piles proves impractical, there's an alternative consideration. They can be regarded as supplemental electrodes in accordance with Section 250.53 of the National Electrical Code. In this scenario, while they don't necessarily need to be bonded to the grounding electrode system, they still contribute to enhanced grounding protection. It's important to note that while pre-stressed concrete piles can offer excellent grounding capabilities, they might not always be the optimal choice for every application. Factors such as soil conditions, the availability of other grounding electrodes, and the overall design of the grounding electrode system all play a crucial role in determining the most effective grounding solution. To elaborate further on the specific methods of bonding, let's break down the exothermic welding process a bit more. This process involves using a mold placed around the rebar and the grounding conductor. A special welding powder, typically a mixture of copper oxide and aluminum, is then ignited within the mold. This creates a molten copper alloy that flows around the rebar and the grounding conductor, creating a permanent and highly conductive connection. Exothermic welds are known for their reliability and resistance to corrosion, making them a popular choice for grounding applications. Now let's consider mechanical clamps. These come in various shapes and sizes, designed to accommodate different sizes of rebar and grounding conductors. They are typically made of copper or aluminum and are designed to provide a tight, secure connection. When installing mechanical clamps, it's important to ensure that the rebar surface is clean and free of any corrosion. A conductive joint compound can also be used to improve the connection and prevent corrosion. The clamp should be tightened to the manufacturer's specifications to ensure a reliable connection. Moving on to conduit connections, this method involves attaching a metal conduit to the rebar and then grounding the conduit at a suitable grounding point. The conduit can be attached to the rebar using various methods, such as welding, bolting, or using a specialized fitting. It's important to ensure that the conduit is properly grounded to the grounding electrode system to provide a low impedance path to ground. Finally, let's discuss concrete piercing bolts. These bolts are designed to be driven through the concrete and into the rebar, creating a mechanical connection. They typically have a large washer to distribute the force and prevent the bolt from pulling through the concrete. When installing concrete piercing bolts, it's important to use a hammer drill and a properly sized drill bit. The bolt should be driven in straight and tight to ensure a good connection. Now let's delve deeper into the alternative consideration of using pre-stressed concrete piles as supplemental electrodes. According to Section 250.53 of the National Electrical Code, supplemental electrodes are permitted to be used to augment the grounding electrode system. They are not required to be bonded to the main grounding electrode system, but they can provide additional grounding protection. When using pre-stressed concrete piles as supplemental electrodes, it's important to consider their location and the soil conditions. The piles should be located in an area with good soil conductivity to ensure that they are effective in providing grounding protection. It's also important to ensure that the piles are properly installed and maintained. Now, let's talk more about the factors to consider when determining the best grounding electrode for a particular application. Firstly, soil conditions play a crucial role. Soil resistivity, which is a measure of how well the soil conducts electricity, can vary significantly depending on the soil type, moisture content, and temperature. Low soil resistivity is desirable for effective grounding. If the soil resistivity is high, it may be necessary to use multiple grounding electrodes or to improve the soil conductivity by adding soil amendments. Secondly, the availability of other grounding electrodes is a factor. If other grounding electrodes, such as a metal water pipe or a ground ring, are already present, they should be used as part of the grounding electrode system. These electrodes can provide a more effective grounding path than pre-stressed concrete piles alone. Thirdly, the overall design of the grounding electrode system is important. The grounding electrode system should be designed to provide a low impedance path to ground for fault currents. This can be achieved by using multiple grounding electrodes, bonding all metallic components of the electrical system together, and ensuring that all grounding connections are properly made. In addition to these factors, it's also important to consider the specific requirements of the equipment being grounded. Some equipment, such as sensitive electronic equipment, may require a dedicated grounding electrode to minimize noise and interference. Other equipment, such as large motors, may require a more robust grounding system to handle high fault currents. In summary, pre-stressed concrete piles with embedded rebar are considered grounding electrodes according to the National Electrical Code. They must be bonded together to form a grounding electrode system unless they are used as supplemental electrodes. The method of bonding the rebar to the grounding electrode system will depend on the specific circumstances of the installation. Factors such as soil conditions, the availability of other grounding electrodes, and the overall design of the grounding electrode system should be considered when determining the best grounding solution for a particular application. Furthermore, let's explore some of the nuances of National Electrical Code Section 250.52 and its implications for grounding electrodes. This section outlines the requirements for grounding electrodes, which are essential for providing a safe and effective path for fault currents to return to the source. The primary purpose of a grounding electrode system is to limit the voltage on electrical systems and equipment, preventing electrical shock hazards and minimizing damage to equipment in the event of a fault. Section 250.52 lists several types of electrodes that are recognized as grounding electrodes, including metal underground water pipes, metal frames of buildings or structures, concrete encased electrodes, ground rings, and rod and pipe electrodes. As we've established, pre-stressed concrete piles with embedded rebar also fall under this category, specifically under Section 250.52 of FIV, which covers other listed grounding electrodes. The term listed in this context refers to equipment or materials that have been evaluated by a recognized testing laboratory and found to comply with applicable standards. When selecting a grounding electrode, it's crucial to consider the soil conditions at the site. Soil resistivity, as mentioned earlier, plays a significant role in the effectiveness of the grounding electrode. In areas with high soil resistivity, it may be necessary to use multiple grounding electrodes or to enhance the soil conductivity using methods such as soil amendments. Section 250.53 of the National Electrical Code provides additional guidance on grounding electrode system installation. This section covers topics such as the number of electrodes required, the spacing between electrodes, and the methods for connecting electrodes together. In general, a grounding electrode system should consist of at least one grounding electrode, and all grounding electrodes must be bonded together to form a unified system. The bonding of grounding electrodes ensures that all electrodes are at the same potential, minimizing the risk of voltage differences and ensuring a low impedance path for fault currents. When connecting grounding electrodes together, it's important to use appropriate bonding conductors and connectors. The size of the bonding conductor must be based on the size of the largest ungrounded conductor in the system, as specified in Table 250.66 of the National Electrical Code. The connectors used to connect the bonding conductors to the grounding electrodes must be listed for grounding and bonding purposes. In addition to grounding electrodes, the National Electrical Code also requires the grounding of equipment. Equipment grounding is the connection of non-current carrying metal parts of electrical equipment to the grounding electrode system. This provides a low impedance path for fault currents to return to the source, minimizing the risk of electrical shock. Section 250.118 of the National Electrical Code lists the acceptable methods for equipment grounding, including the use of metal conduits, metal raceways, equipment grounding conductors, and flexible metal conduit. When grounding equipment, it's important to ensure that all connections are tight and secure. Loose connections can increase the impedance of the grounding path, reducing its effectiveness. It's also important to avoid using the neutral conductor as an equipment grounding conductor, as this can create a shock hazard. In summary, grounding electrodes and equipment grounding are essential components of a safe and effective electrical system. Grounding electrodes provide a path for fault currents to return to the source, while equipment grounding protects against electrical shock hazards. The National Electrical Code provides detailed requirements for grounding electrodes and equipment grounding, and it's important to follow these requirements to ensure the safety of people and property. Now, let's consider some real-world scenarios where pre-stressed concrete piles are used as grounding electrodes. These piles are commonly used in construction projects such as bridges, buildings, and marine structures. In these applications, the piles provide structural support and also serve as grounding electrodes for the electrical system. When using pre-stressed concrete piles as grounding electrodes, it's important to consider the size and depth of the piles. Larger and deeper piles will generally provide a more effective grounding path. It's also important to ensure that the rebar in the piles is properly connected to the grounding electrode system. This can be achieved using the methods we discussed earlier, such as exothermic welding, mechanical clamps, or conduit connections. In some cases, it may be necessary to use multiple pre-stressed concrete piles to achieve the desired grounding performance. The number of piles required will depend on the soil conditions, the size of the electrical system, and the specific requirements of the equipment being grounded. It's also important to consider the potential for corrosion of the rebar in the piles. Corrosion can increase the impedance of the grounding path, reducing its effectiveness. To prevent corrosion, it's important to use corrosion-resistant rebar and to apply a protective coating to the rebar. In addition to using pre-stressed concrete piles as grounding electrodes, it's also important to consider the overall grounding system design. The grounding system should be designed to provide a low impedance path to ground for fault currents. This can be achieved by using multiple grounding electrodes, bonding all metallic components of the electrical system together, and ensuring that all grounding connections are properly made. It's also important to perform regular testing of the grounding system to ensure that it is functioning properly. Grounding system testing can be performed using a variety of methods, such as a ground resistance tester or an impedance tester. The results of the testing should be compared to the original design specifications to ensure that the grounding system is still meeting its performance requirements. In conclusion, pre-stressed concrete piles can be an effective grounding electrode when properly installed and maintained. However, it's important to consider the specific requirements of the application and to follow the guidelines of the National Electrical Code to ensure a safe and effective grounding system. Let us move on to discussing the importance of regular inspections and maintenance. Grounding systems, including those utilizing pre-stressed concrete piles, are not static entities. They require periodic inspection and maintenance to ensure their continued effectiveness. Factors such as soil settlement, corrosion, and physical damage can compromise the integrity of the grounding system over time. Regular inspections should include visual checks of all grounding connections, bonding conductors, and grounding electrodes. Look for signs of corrosion, loose connections, or physical damage. Any issues identified during the inspection should be promptly addressed to prevent a degradation of the grounding system's performance. In addition to visual inspections, electrical testing should be performed on a regular basis. This testing can include ground resistance measurements, impedance measurements, and continuity tests. Ground resistance measurements can be used to assess the overall effectiveness of the grounding system. Impedance measurements can be used to identify high impedance connections, which can impede the flow of fault currents. Continuity tests can be used to verify the integrity of bonding conductors and grounding connections. The frequency of inspections and testing will depend on the specific application and the environmental conditions. In harsh environments, such as coastal areas or industrial facilities, more frequent inspections and testing may be necessary. The results of all inspections and testing should be documented and maintained for future reference. This documentation can be used to track the performance of the grounding system over time and to identify any trends or potential problems. It is important to consider the impact of future construction or modifications on the grounding system. Any new construction or modifications should be carefully planned to ensure that they do not compromise the integrity of the existing grounding system. If new grounding electrodes are added, they should be properly bonded to the existing grounding system. Similarly, if existing grounding electrodes are removed or modified, the grounding system should be re-evaluated to ensure that it still meets the applicable requirements. It is crucial to remember that the grounding system is an integral part of the electrical safety system. Any modifications or repairs to the grounding system should be performed by qualified personnel who are familiar with the applicable codes and standards. In addition to the technical aspects of grounding systems, it is also important to consider the human element. Proper training and awareness are essential to ensure that workers understand the importance of grounding and the potential hazards associated with electrical systems. Workers should be trained to recognize the signs of a faulty grounding system and to report any issues immediately. They should also be trained to follow safe work practices when working on or near electrical equipment. By combining regular inspections and maintenance with proper training and awareness, it is possible to maintain a safe and effective grounding system that protects people and property from electrical hazards.